So in this video, we're going to be doing an experiment, or analyzing an experiment, in which participants saw a picture of someone either wearing glasses or not wearing glasses. So you can see here in the Excel file, we have our condition, and it's either labeled glasses or no glasses. And then each participant answered 5 questions pertaining to the person's perceived intelligence. So most of these were just regular questions like, this person likely reads a lot of books, this person is likely to have a college education, this person seems thoughtful, or this person seems smart. But there's one reverse scored item just to catch people who might be having a positivity bias. And this item is, this person looks like they would not do well in school. So this is one item we'll reverse score when we analyze this. Now the first thing we need to do is get rid of all this text, because right now it's the number followed by the item like extremely, somewhat, a little, quite a bit, and people's agreement with the above statements. So to get rid of that text, what we're going to do is copy the headers here at the top. You can hit Command C or Control C, and then we're just going to paste them here. And this is where we're going to put in our numbers. And a nice little Excel function we can do to do this is if we click on one of the cells, we come up here, and we type in left, open parentheses, and then it wants us to figure out what cell we want to copy. So we're just going to copy the corresponding cell right here. And if we do a comma, it'll say how many characters do we want to copy. We just want to copy the first character on the left-hand side, or the number. So then we close parentheses and then hit enter. And then it basically just copies that little bit of text, which is the 5, and leaves the rest out. So we can use this little box right here if we hover over it, and we can select it and drag it over to all 5 of these questions. And you notice it just takes the text from each of these. And then we can again take this little box and drag down and fill out the whole data set. So that's an easy way to convert all of these to the numbers. Now one thing that's a little weird in Excel is that it copies it as text instead of actual numbers. So one way I figured out how to get around that, you first have to copy these and then paste them just as values. So the easiest way to do that is if you select all the columns. So I'm just clicking and holding and then dragging over to select all these columns. And you copy with Control or Command C. And then you come up here and you click Paste as Values. So you have to do this as just a step to convert it from regular text to numbers. So we'll go Paste Values, and it won't look like much of anything's different. But if you select all these right here, all the numbers, you notice this little dialog box that comes up. You click this and it says Convert to Number, and that's exactly what we want to do. So go ahead and click on that, and then it converts it all to numbers. There we go. And one way you can tell that it's done it is it'll go from a left alignment to a right alignment, because that's a way to denote that it's in numbers. So now all of these are in regular numbers, just like we want them to be. But we still need to reverse score this item that this person looks like they would not do well in school. So let's go ahead and do that. And right here, we'll make a new column. We'll call it Q4 reversed to make it easy for us to figure out which item this is. Now we could go over here and just manually reverse it. So if it's a 2 on a 5-point scale, we'd reverse it into a 4. If it's a 1, we'd flip it into a 5. If it's a 3, it remains a 3. But that's pretty tedious. So here's a little equation you can use for a 5-point scale. We can first take this number, so we can do an equal sign. I'll do that again. We do an equal sign for the function, and then we select the number we want to change. And then we can reverse it by timesing it by a -1. So in this case, it would take this 2 and then turn it into -2. And then to flip it back over into our scale, a 5-point scale, you want to add one number extra past the scale. So since it's a 5-point scale, we'll add 6. So we're going to flip this, make this a -2, add 6, and that'll turn it into a 4. So it basically does this flipping for us. And then once you have that equation in there, your value that you want to flip times -1 plus 6, then you can just take that and again apply it to the rest of the numbers here. So now we have all the items in numbers, and we have a version of each item where a high number means high intelligence and a low number means low perceived intelligence. And at this point, we won't be using this Q4 item anymore at all. So you could delete it if you wanted to. If you were going to do that, however, you would have to do the same copy and paste values for this column. Because if you just delete this one right here, then all of a sudden it doesn't have anything to reference. So if you did want to delete it, you could again copy this column, go paste values, and then you can delete it. So there, now we have a version that again is in the right orientation and they're all numbers. So now the last step is just to create an average perceived intelligence score. So I'm just going to call this column average. And then here I'm going to create an average by going equal sign and then average, which is a function in Excel. And then you can just select all these numbers across. So if we average across all these for this first person, they scored this person a 4.4 out of 5 on perceived intelligence. And then again, we're just going to take this and drag it down to do that for the rest of the data. So for our actual data set in StatCrunch, we're actually just going to use two of these columns. We're going to use what condition they were in and then their average perceived intelligence scores. So let's go ahead and open up a StatCrunch file here. I'm just using Chrome and I'm already logged in, so I'm just going to open StatCrunch. So for the first column, I'm going to come here and just select the column on condition, copy it, and then paste it in here, Control or Command V. And then I'm going to do the same thing with average. And then Control or Command V it into here. And in StatCrunch, this is all you need. You might want to save your data at this point just to make sure you have it. So we basically have the average perceived intelligence scores by conditions, glasses or no glasses. So at this point, we want to see if there's any difference between these two conditions. And a nice way to check that out is basically to run the means and standard deviations for both of these. So to do that, you can go Stat, Summary Stats, Columns, and we're just going to select Average and then Group by Condition. And we only need the in, mean, and standard deviation as usual. So if I hit Compute, you notice there's a pretty sizable difference. When they were wearing glasses, they were a 4.12 out of 5 on the perceived intelligence scale. When they weren't wearing glasses, they dropped down to about a 2.5. But then the question is that a significant difference? So to determine that, we can do a t-test. That's under Stat, t-stats, to-sample with data. And we're going to select the average in both columns. But here, the where statement, that's where we'll separate our groups. So we'll do a build, and then we're going to add column, condition, and make it equal to the first condition we think is going to have the largest intelligence score. We already know it now, is the glasses one. So we'll go ahead and click Value Glasses and click Add, and hit OK. And then we'll just pop the other group into this one too. So we can go Conditions equals no glasses. And since we know the glasses is going to be higher, we'll set this to the greater than symbol. And then we can hit Compute. And what we're really interested here is the p-value, if it's at or below 0.05. And in this case, it's well below 0.05. In fact, it's really off the scales. So basically, it is a significant difference. The last step we would need to do is to graph this. And we're going to do that with a means plot. So graphs, means plot. Then we're going to select, again, average and group by condition. The only other thing to remember with a means plot is to set the multiplier for standard error to 1. That way it'll set the error bars to see if there's any significance there. And of course here there's a huge significant difference, so there's a lot of difference between the error bars, a lot of space between the error bars. So in this case, to write it up, I'm going to open up a Microsoft Word document here. I'll make the text a little bit bigger so you guys can see it easier. But let's see. First, we want to write out our results in plain English, so we could say there was, instead of there was a significant difference, I'll just say the target wearing the glasses was perceived as significantly more trustworthy than the target not wearing glasses. I just realized I need to change that, wearing glasses. So the target wearing glasses was perceived as significantly more trustworthy than the target not wearing glasses. And then this is a good place to put in the means and standard deviations for this. So it says the target wearing glasses, and we don't want to put the mean and standard deviation there because we don't know what we're measuring yet. That's just the group. So the target wearing glasses was perceived as significantly more trustworthy. So that would be a good place to put the mean and standard deviation for that group than the target not wearing glasses. And that would be a good place to put in their mean and standard deviation. And so the mean and standard deviations are right here in our summary statistics average. So for the glasses condition, their mean was, if we go over here, glasses mean 4.13. We're always going to round to the 100th place because that's APA formatting. And the standard deviation right next to it is a 0.30. Make sure to round it correctly because right here it's 0.294, but then there's a 7. So the 7 would round this to a 5, which would round this to a 3.30. And then the not wearing glasses condition, they had a mean of 2.47, which I'm getting right here. And they had a standard deviation of 0.40 or 0.40. And you do want to include the 0 on these just because standard deviation can be more than 1. So you have, if it is below 1, you have to put the 0 point and then whatever it is. So then at the end here, we want to put our t-statistics. So put a little comma and a lowercase t denoting that we did a t-test. In parentheses, we can put the degrees of freedom, which is right here under df, and it's 58. And then our actual t-statistic, which it says t-stat, and that's 18.27. And then finally, the p-value. In this case, we'd usually put p is equal to something. But since it's really, really low, it's well off the scale, the lowest we can go is a 0.01. And since in this case, p doesn't actually equal 0.01, it's below 0.01, we'll change this equal sign to a less than sign. So now we have our full sentence. The target wearing glasses was perceived as significantly more trustworthy, mean and standard deviation, than the target not wearing glasses, mean and standard deviation with the t and p value. Now, one thing we do want to do to be AP formatted is to italicize all the statistical acronyms. So we can select those and hit the italics key, or we can hit Control or Command I. And then the very last thing, we want to be able to include this figure over here, this means plot. So according to APA formatting, we first have to cite it here. So we put in parentheses figure 1. And then on a separate page, we'd want to actually put the figure. Now, instead of just making a separate page by clicking enter or return a bunch of times, that's sort of a messy way of doing it. We can go back up here and just hit insert and page break. Or actually, it's probably easier to do it up here. So insert and break, page break. You can also usually do it by hitting Command Enter or Control Enter. We'll do a clean page break, and that's where we'll put in our graph. So to do that, we can go Options, Copy. I'll right click and copy image. And if we come back here, we can just paste the image like normal, make it a little bit bigger here. Wow, that doesn't look great. So I'll just keep it that way. And then underneath, we want to come up with our title. So in italics, we go figure 1. And then we can come up with whatever title makes sense. In this case, it would be difference in perceived trustworthiness between target wearing glasses and target not wearing glasses. And there could be many ways of saying that, but that's just one way that describes that graph. So there you go. That's how you do the full analysis for an experiment.